All right, Doc. For the
Okay.
record, state your name.
Donald James Murray Jr., nickname as Doc.
Now, the old nickname, real quick. You were called the douche forever. Give me a little bit of insight on that.
Came to the University, Nevada. It's called Nevada. August of '67. Moved into the dorm. My best friend told everybody on the dorm floor that my nickname was the douche.
That's
But
it?
I grew up back east. And when he came back on Thanksgiving, nobody knew my name on campus. They just called me, "Hey, douche, what are you doing?"
Okay.
And he made it stick.
Okay.
But it came from a ski vacation that senior year up at Stratton Mountain in Mount Snow.
Okay.
Everybody in high school was called a dumb douchebag, and I was the dumbest one. So. He's the one that made it stick.
Now, you grew up, what's your history? You grew up in New York, right?
Yeah, suburb of Rochester, New York.
Okay.
A ski suburb.
And you came out here when?
August of '67, 10, Nevada.
Okay. And when was the
student?
And is that when you first skied Mount Rose?
Yeah. I came on I can't say a voucher, but to attend a university and be on the ski team. And that's eventually the ski team was part of Mount Rose. So to earn a season pass to ski with the ski team, we had to work a certain amount of Saturdays on the mountain at Mount Rose.
Okay.
And that was our job. There was probably 12, 14 of us traveling with the team as alternates and full-time members. And we all had a sign-in sheet and got a pass if we completed a certain amount of work hours to earn that pass. And that's the way it worked, 67, 68, 69, and then 70 and 71 I bought a pass because I was only part-time. I only competed for the university for 3 years.
Okay. And what kind of work would they make you do? Lifty, everything, or?
No, it was mainly painting, scraping. All the seats were, I think, yellow. They were black. The double chairs were yellow, so we'd sand and scrape the seats down, get a fresh coat of paint on them. Bury things out on the runs. Kit Carson was full of erosion ruts, so we'd be cutting limbs off the fir trees and pine trees and throwing them in the ruts to stop the erosion. And eventually Dave Hall dug them all up when we put the water bars in and reseeded and graded Kit Carson Run. I said, "Hey, you're digging a lot of limbs and branches and logs and all kinds of interesting stuff up in certain areas?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I helped put those in there to stop the erosion coming straight down the hill because they didn't put water bars in them."
Right.
When they graded Kit Carson, and they did that, I want to say the summer of, this place opened in '64, '65. I would say they did it in '66. They cut the Kit Carson Run.
Okay.
And it was a big winter, and you could stand in the erosion ruts
Huh.
when I came here in '67, fall '67. So we had a shovel brigade, saw brigade, putting brush in there, anything we could find to stop the water from eroding the mountain.
Okay. Describe the mountain when you first were here in '67. What lifts were there? Was Northwest a double?
Northwest was a double chairlift. Ponderosa was the same model, double chairlift. And then we had the Alpenhorn lift, which was up towards Tower 8 or 9 of Ponderosa, and it went up mine shaft. It was a T-bar.
The T-bar, okay.
And it had a cable on it for the large snow years that we had.
Was this Homa in that at that time or not?
The Poma didn't come into Tito put that in with Yannick, and I would say 72, 73 maybe. And then they put lights out there. Johnny the electrician put lights out there, wired them up, nailed them to the trees, and we had night skiing during the holidays
Huh.
and Friday and Saturday nights, and it was free
Just out here.
right here on the ski off.
Okay. All
And
right.
you rode the pommel lift, and it derailed every hour.
Now, slide was its own animal at that point. When you
Yeah.
when you first came here, was there the quote Iron Curtain or not?
You know, I don't remember how we separated it, or we just knew not to go over there. If you went over there, it would cost you $1 to come back if you wanted to ride the lift.
That's how they do it.
Yeah. The Falcons, I can't remember if they were here. I think they were here for 1 year or 2 years before they went back to, they went back to slide. Originally, the Falcon race team started at slide, then they came to Rose for a year or two. And I met some of the Falcons through the university ski team, and they talked me into going over there, and I said, I'm never riding those lifts again. I had paid my $1 to get up out of there, and I'd never seen it. I grew up skiing in New England, never seen a lift as old and rickety as those ones that slide, and I said, I'm going back to Rose. And I never went back over there until they put the quad Zephyr in.
Okay.
Stafford came and grabbed me out of the rental shop back in the late 80s, early 90s, and said, you're going over there. He hadn't been over there in over 20 years.
Huh.
And dragged me over to ride his new lift that they had installed that summer or the summer before. It was, I think, the second year in operation. Randy Story and Greg Stafford just grabbed both me out of the rental shop and go, you're going to go try this. You're going back to Slide Mountain. We know how many years it's been since you've been over there. It's a whole different place.
All right.
So that was my next experience back at Slide Mountain.
Had they, when they put that lift in, had they already torn down the old towers? That were the old towers up?
Nope, everything was gone. They had even, Ludwig was here then, and they'd even started back in the first or second time Mount Rose was together. When they tore the old towers down, they left the angle iron and everything on the mountain. So it became an obstacle when we had low snow years. So they had torn all the metal down to the bottom and cut it up in the parking lot to go to the scrap iron or to the dump. So it was pretty much cleaned up.
No, I remember because in '94 those piles were there, and they were getting rid of it.
Oh, they still were. The cable was a big deal too.
Yeah.
It was laying in the parking lot. Joe cut it up certain lengths.
Okay. When did you start in a rental shop?
Let's see. Well, let's say I earned my pass for those, 68, 69 years. Bought a pass 70, 71. January 71, finished the last class at the university and went on the payroll the next day at Mount Rose. They needed help in the ski school, so I was available. Steve Moloff raised my hand with Tito Cornell. I have a world famous ski instructor and race coach right here to be able to work for you, Tito. So I was on the Mount Rose Ski School starting the middle of January of 1971. So that's when I went on the payroll from Mount Rose and continued on the payroll to this day, which is what, the 8th or 9th
Of April.
April 2012.
Right.
So
you
when
ran.
that year I did everything. Tito took a liking to me, and whether we were open or closed, I was here working. They gave me a place to live. I gave up my college dorm or wherever I lived at the university and stayed up here with him and worked the whole mountain. We did races together. Seeing I had a lot of racing experience, Mount Rose put on a lot of races. We had the Mount Rose ski team with Andro Molitor at that time. We were no longer Falcons. The McKinneys were here. And this place was booming.
Okay, so you said you started in the rental shop, was it 71, something like that?
No, that had been 73 probably.
Okay. What was a lodge like at that point? I know this lodge grew in phases, right?
Yeah.
you used to just go in the front door and immediately go downstairs.
When I first came here in '67, you walked in the front doors of the A-frame, and all it was the A-frame with the stairs are to go to the bar. Right now, the Timbers was just a wall.
Okay.
To the left-hand side were the ticket windows.
Where that old roof is?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes
Well,
sense.
it's where Beth's safe is and everything.
Yeah, but you know when you walk in the lobby and you look, you can see there's old shingles there.
Yeah. Well, there were ticket windows under those
Okay.
shingles. And when you turned right, you walk downstairs, and the rental shop and ski shop were combined. Was there on the right? There were two doors going to the outside when you went straight down the stairs to the outside of the lodge. There was the picnic area with a big, huge fireplace in the center of the room down there now. There was a bar along the outside of the wall with windows looking out at ski off. The bathrooms were in the location that they are now. And the maintenance part of the whole lodge was where Rosebuds was.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And Ted Short had an office. He was the general manager when I came at that time in '67. Right next to those double doors leading outside. And there were some lockers behind his office. Metal lockers.
Okay.
For pass holders. And more picnic tables. The rental shop was nowhere near.
The snowboard rental shop when I came here had been a locker area in the early 90s.
And previous to that, and when I started on the payroll in '71, it was Tito had converted that into the ski school area.
Okay.
And where the extra room is, where Rob stores snowboard boots and skis and snowboards now, in that corner was a small locker room for the Mount Rose ski team.
Okay. And was the maintenance building in at that point?
It came probably, we're right there at 71 when Tito, okay. I can't remember.
Okay.
If that had started yet. And see, I never came back that fall, '72, because I busted up on a motocross race back in New York State. So the rental shop was offered to me that summer of '72, and I couldn't do it
Okay.
because I was in a cast for 3.5, 4 months. So another friend of mine took it over. I offered Tito and Randy Zosh, a friend of mine who could run the rental shop. And he made contact and moved back from Rochester back out here to Reno. And he ran the rental shop. And then I came back in the spring 73. When did I got hurt in 71. 72, I came in spring of '72 and broke him out so he had time off. So then I officially started working in the rental shop at that time.
Okay.
But I'd helped Tito in that spring of '71. He had somebody running the rental shop that didn't even ski. And I showed him how to work the bindings and do tune-ups and wax jobs and stuff like that. So whenever Tito didn't need me out on the mountain, I was in the rental shop showing this guy what he could do with the skis and the bindings. And help groom some of the other people that helped make it through the season. So I became well-rounded with Tito at that time in my knowledge of the skiing.
Okay.
Outside and inside.
Now Tito, was he ever GM or was he strictly running downstairs?
I don't really remember. The first year Tito was here, Jim Lucier was still here.
Okay.
So I always thought Jim Lucier was the owner, the main man, and Tito ran the main operation on the outside. He ran the ski school, the ski team with Andro Molitor, maintenance of the lifts. We had a couple of snowcats, Tuckers, a Sprite, Thiacol, that we roamed the mountain with. We dug out the lifts when there were big snow.
Yeah.
We got rid of the shovels. and where we could get to the Sprite to the top of the mountain, dig out top of Northwest. It still had to do shovel work, but the Sprite did most of the work. And they carried 4 of us on the inside, I believe, tight together. But we spent a lot of days digging lifts out
Yeah.
in big snow years. And then Kurt ran the rental shop. I came that February after the ski show down in Vegas.
Kurt whom?
Shedden was his name.
Okay.
And finished up the season with him. And then I was traveling around that summer. I was Steve Molos's best man in San Francisco, and he says, "Hey, Tito's looking for you." So after San Francisco, the wedding in August, I came up here, and Tito was building the deck on the outside of the building. Jim Lucier had put 2 stories on
Okay.
where the cafeteria is. In 70, 71, 72, those summers,
Okay.
Tito decided to put a deck on that summer on the corner of the building. He says, Kurt says he doesn't want to run the rental shop, which I had already heard. And I said, okay, I'll take it over. He says, can you start after Labor Day? We want to remodel. So I went back to New York, came back September, remodeled the rental shop, and I would have been 72, 73 season that I started full-time in the rental shop.
All right. And you
As
said,
a supervisor, manager type deal.
okay. And you said at that time was about the time that they built, was the hotel built at that time or just the first level?
They were finishing up that season,
Okay.
coming upstairs.
Okay.
And
With
they had
all,
everything. The year before, they never got it completed, and we had a big snow year. And the roof collapsed around the fireplace in the bar and went all the way to the basement.
wow. Okay.
Gary Birch was here at that time, and I don't think Tito was here at that time. I was still with the university. And Gary Birch and I were down there with a chainsaw and trying to shore up the men's bathroom and the maintenance building and around the bar area in the basement where the thing was sagging from all the way to the snow. I believe the Mount Rose Highway was closed to the ski area at least 20 to 23 days that winter.
Okay. When they would
Too
close
much
it, how high would they go up?
Sky Tavern.
That's it.
They just didn't have the snow blowers for the kind of snow.
Yeah, I've heard of a bunch of the old politics of NDOT and the resorts and would fight just trying to get them to open the
Yes.
road. And,
I spent that university break in January at a house at Sky Tavern, and we could, with some ski patrolmen, and we'd ski down the road and get a ride back up. We got to know the NDOT guys and just do shoveling and stuff like that. And then they finally had to hire people to dig out after the roof collapsed in February or March.
huh. So you said you lived at Sky Tavern. When did you?
I just stayed there. I was
You just stayed there.
in the house for 3 weeks. One
Okay.
winter break from the university.
So let's see.
When-
Early '70s, 395 went how far before it became South Virginia?
Well, when I came here in '67, the last signal light was at where we have the Coliseum, called the Coliseum, which is called the Convention Center. now.
Okay.
It was 2-lane road right out to Mount Rose, and Mount Rose was a flashing yellow light.
Okay.
Or a stop sign on Virginia City and Mount Rose, about a Mount Rose Highway.
Right. Did you ever go to the Flame?
Oh, the Flame, yeah, the Flame is up there along the highway there. And the Rosemont Lodge, which is the Reindeer now, it was a Rosemont and a Reindeer. And the Sundance for a couple of years in between those two names I just gave you.
What was the Sundance? I've never heard of that one.
The Sundance was before the Reindeer.
Oh, okay.
They had bands every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night, summer and winter. And Greg Stafford was living over at the East Bowl and the slide above the slide maintenance building. And when I took over the rental shop 72, 73, they also gave me, this third floor was finished as hotel rooms. And over here where the telephone room is and uniform room, there was a room with no window, and they gave me that room to live in. So I lived on the mountain. Tito wanted me here like 24/7.
Like the Ramirez, huh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Just
Frank and
caretaker.
Gus and that.
Yeah.
So I lived here for 4 or 5 years. Even after Ludwig and Ida came, after Tito left, they continued to let me have the room as part of my salary in the rental shop. So I stayed there.
All right. What were they wearing for uniforms when you first came here?
It's very interesting. I don't think we had coats. I don't remember specifically having a coat, a Mount Rose uniform coat. I remember my ski school sweater from that 70-71 season was a red, white, and blue striped sweater.
Okay.
And, you know, a pin that showed you were a ski instructor.
All right.
And as far as, I don't think there were any hats.
All right.
Got a plain Jane.
And I don't even know the history of skiing that far, but when did they stop using cable bindings and went to like step-in
We were
bindings?
switching over at that time. There were cable bindings when I looked into that shop in 71 for Tito. And I'd been in there, the guy who had leased the shop space in 67, 68, had head skis and hearts and a small rental fleet and demo fleet. And he had cable bindings on almost everything, which you could adjust the different colors of the cables for different size ski boots.
Oh, okay.
That's how you adjusted for different size boots for different colored cables.
Oh, all
You
right.
interchanged them.
And then you switched over to step-in bindings shortly after that?
No, they went to, I think Fritz had come into the picture by
Right.
then, in the early 70s. And he had brought over a plate system. Or Jim Blucher got it here from Switzerland. It was called a Gersh plate system. And the same thing, it was color-coded for different size boots, and the toe and heels were the same distance apart, and you just changed the plate for the different size ski boots.
Huh, okay.
And so they went from cables to this plate system on the kids and adult skis, which did not work very good at all. And then Fritz was part of the Carnivals team, and Gatesy and Henke ski boots. And we got our first 50 pairs of Carnivals in that spring of 71, I think, with the Gatesy binding.
Okay.
And that Gatesy heel piece on that binding was a movable one to take different size ski boots. So it was a step in
Okay.
with a toe release and a heel release.
All right. What were you skiing on at that point?
Rosanov skis, 207s, 215s, 220s. You know,
Yeah.
racing career was coming to an end from the university, so, and the Far West Ski Association, so.
Did you ever jump?
Sky Tavern, Boreal Ridge.
So you did take those big jumps those pictures show?
I didn't like it, but I was forced to it because I had all 4 cross-country, alpine, downhill, giant slalom, and jumping.
Okay.
When I was full-time on the team, I was required to do all 5, did I count? 4 or 5 of those. 3 alpine events, 1 cross-country, and 1 jumping.
All right. Now, would you ski other places at that time? Where were your favorite places to go besides here?
Oh, well, when we traveled with the team, we went everywhere. Utah, Colorado, and then we competed against Berkeley, Siskiyou College up there in Northern California. So each Mount Rose was designated for Nevada for the university. I think Berkeley had Squaw Valley. So each winter carnival
Okay.
had their own area that they competed with.
Which was your favorite?
Oh, I love Sugar Bowl.
Okay.
Got invited to go to into the Silver Belt a couple of years to that race. That was probably one of the toughest. And the men's downhill at Squaw Valley was probably one of the toughest. And then the high spring descent down KT 22, which was the women's downhill. Bracing in long thongs, no releasable bindings in the heel. It was quite different back then.
Yeah. Can't remember. When did 80 come in versus I-40? Were you driving I-80 at the time?
We got off Interstate 80 coming from the east, coming from New York. Well, it was never complete across the whole country. But we got off at Sparks, which is now McCarran Boulevard.
Right.
And you could drive 4th Street. And over the years it came up 4th Street, and they finally got off at, what was the name of that street there? Where's DMV is, cross street right there. You got right there on East 4th Street.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Where Galetti's is.
Yeah.
And that's where and then you rode 4th Street all the way to Mogul. And
Okay.
you got back on the freeway at Mogul. Nothing was done to the downtown Reno. They didn't start that to, I believe, 1970, 71,
Okay.
digging it out. And they slowly brought, before they dug out the center of Reno, they brought, from Mogul, they brought the Interstate 80 all the way to Keystone.
Oh, okay.
And so you could get on a Keystone if you had to go to Squaw or Sugar Bowl or Lake Tahoe
Okay.
or something like that.
Sounds about right. Did you cut any of the runs here?
No.
Okay.
I was generally, as soon as we closed up the mountain and the rental shop in the springtime, I was here for another week or two, and I was either down in California helping out a little bit, a couple odd jobs, and then I went east for the summer.
Okay.
Cleaned my room up here, so I was ready to go for the next fall when I came back. Ludwig had me back September 15th, October 1st, October 15th, depending on how the season was before.
Okay. So when did Randy come in?
Randy was here before me. Randy came in 67. Randy Zosh came in 67, just like I did, August of 67 at the university. He'd gone to Johnson State up in Vermont 1 year and then transferred to Nevada. And he stayed here year round. He ended up skiing here with the team 67, 68, and he came to work cutting runs and doing everything on the hill in 68. Jim Lucier liked him and put him to work
Okay.
on the mountain.
So he would.
And he slowly, as he was a business major at the university, and he slowly worked himself in. When Tito hired me, Randy was running the whole inside of the lodge,
Okay.
doing the payroll, cashiers, rental shop, ski school, lift tickets, hotel when it was open. He kind of was Tito's main man. Jim Lucier was out of the picture by then.
All right. Well, speaking of hotel, did you ever participate in any of the UNR carnivals, or whenever it was? I heard stories about when the hotel would just go crazy with just be packed and.
Oh yeah, they got snowbound here. There were 3 or 4 buses stuck in the parking lot because everybody came up during the start of a blizzard, and by the 5-6 hours after the bands, everybody was in here just participating after the day of skiing and everything, and they closed the highway. You couldn't get out of here.
Right.
And they finally, Ludwig got the highway department to open it up going downhill, and they made the loader make passes for the bus and a few cars to get out of here. Cause there was people sleeping everywhere.
Oh.
In the basement, in the corners. They had rented every room out, so there were people overflowing, friends on friends. And that only lasted, that might have been an icing on the cake that winter.
Oh.
Carnival there. He just
Okay.
said no more, it wasn't worth it.
Oh.
And then there were fraternity parties and stuff like that that they rented out for afternoon or evening, but he had much more control over it
Okay.
compared to that last winter carnival that was here, where it was pretty much out of control. And a guy who, and where it really got out of control was the guy who was a concessionaire for the cafeteria and the bar. His name was Lev Davis, and he just kept pumping everybody full of beer and wine and drinks, and that's
Right.
what ended up happening. He couldn't go anywhere, so he just kept keeping the bar open as long as he could, because he wanted to make money.
Sure.
So it was something more than I and Ludwig ever looked forward to ever happening here again.
Now, the steakhouse used to be on the other side of the bar,
Yeah, they
right?
called it the Rose Room.
The Rose Room. Okay. And was
And
it
there
open?
was a partition down the bar,
Right.
so you couldn't really, if you sat at the bar, you couldn't look out.
That's,
at
the
mountain.
bar was real dark. I came here in '85. I remember.
Mhm.
It was super dark in there. And the Rose Room, was it sit down seating and service?
Yeah, it was like
Okay.
a steakhouse.
Okay.
And it was set up, and when they put the Poma lift in, they wanted the people to be able to sit in there, have a nice dinner, and watch their kids ski. And it
Okay.
was for the hotel guests too, because
Right.
it was open on holidays and long weekends. So
Okay.
they could watch their kids out there under the lights skiing. And it was only open from like 6 to 8.
Do you want this over here?
Did you ever eat there?
Oh yeah, part of my deal is running the rental shop, so to keep the payroll under control. We'd close up the rental shop at 4:30, 4:15 after skiing, and I didn't have to go back to work till 6 o'clock because we had the rental shop open, hoping to rent some skis out or repair any equipment that people busted up while they were out on the hill
Okay.
or wanted a hot wax. So part of my deal working that night, those extra hours, so that I'd get a meal.
Okay.
Sneak in a couple glasses of red wine, steak.
Was it good?
Oh, it was excellent.
All right. So you said, I'm trying to get the GM structure, how it went. You said Randy, was he ever GM or was he mountain manager or?
Oh, later on, I think Ludwig was president of the company, and then Randy became general manager for a year or two.
Okay.
And when Ludwig came, and Ida, Ludwig was hired as the general manager, so Randy went to the outside.
Okay.
And Greg was not here yet. Greg was over at Slide Mountain. Stafford, we're talking about.
Right.
Was at Slide Mountain. And there was a gentleman who was here. Gary Birch stayed on. Lucier hired Gary Birch to stay on after he built the lifts, Northwest to Alpenhorn and Ponderosa, to do the maintenance. So he and the Snowcats, we had bought a couple. Had a small Tucker, and then they got a big Tucker, and that big Tucker was something else. They had a cutting blade on it, a hydraulic cutting blade. So instead of when we went long times on top of the mountain with ice snow, he got tremendous 7, 8 foot moguls. So with races and stuff like that, Rusty Crook would bring up his rotor tiller and different people, and we'd cut up the moguls, the top of the moguls, to run the races.
Huh.
You know, they called them, we called it the Silver Dollar Derby back then. It's called the McKinney Cup now, but it was right down Northwest. And the Can-Am circuit came here. All the kids from the Northwest came. It was part of the complete race circuit on the West Coast. But even when they ran that cutting blade down there, and that slowed the snowcat coming down the steep slopes, what a mess it made because it didn't chop up the chunks of ice.
Oh.
So it was still pick and shovel work behind that snowcat, but it eliminated the rotor tiller.
Huh.
And then Randy went outside. Ludwig came in. He was the general manager running the whole inside. And Ida kind of ran everything for Ludwig. Cashiers and hiring people and a little marketing. And Randy went out because Ludwig had finally, there was another gentleman after Gary Birch left called Hans Rommel, a German fellow, that was here year-round doing the maintenance. And I think he had been in World War II, he had been a machinist, so he could duplicate anything on these lifts that needed to be done when they broke down. Because the lift company was only in business for like 5 or 6 years out of Switzerland, so there wasn't a lot of access to parts, new parts, when something went off. And Hans was here for a few years, and he was here as a year-round employee, and then we went into the drought situation, and the next thing, Ludwig had to lay him off. Because he couldn't afford it, he had to cut the budget. And I came back in the fall, and he was gone. And then Randy had worked with him quite a bit in the summertime, and learned a lot about the maintenance on the lifts and everything like that. And so he kind of took over, grooming, snow parking lot, and there were a couple other guys that had been around for a year or two on the maintenance. And if they got in real trouble, they called Greg Stafford over from Sliding Mountain to troubleshoot anything.
Okay. Tell me what you remember. How did Sky Tavern operate? Meaning, I can't remember when the city took it over, but when you were here, was it ever running like it was his own public resort at the same time?
It was all Sky Tavern was owned by the city when I came here. I thought it was the greatest thing in the world. The city owned the ski area, and they had Carson City on one day and Reno on the next day for teaching the kids how to ski.
Okay. And so it was never just because the old pictures from the 50s and stuff, that was when it was operating for the public. And
Yeah, there was nothing really above Sky Tavern till they opened up the East Bowl there with a ringer chair.
Right. Okay.
And then they used Northwest as a passage. That's where it got the Northwest Passage, that you could get off the old ringer chair and ski down the face of this and back down to the ringer chair at Sky Tavern.
Right.
And
Okay.
get a ride back up to the base. And then ski that face over there if you wanted to. The Pioneer lift to the Overland came in eventually.
Right.
The Pioneer was the original one.
Mm-hmm. And the Overland had the mid station, right?
Yeah. And open and close, I think, each side, or safety bars went to the side. A single chair, even back east, was much more modern than what that thing was. Like at Mad River Glen or Stowe up Nosedive and stuff were single chairs when I was growing up back in the 50s. I saw that Overland and I said, I don't need to ride this. And it had a floating bull wheel.
And what does define that? Just-
Define a floating bull wheel. Well, you got to the unload station and 200 feet or 150 feet out in front of you was this bull wheel with a cable running through it on the light side and the heavy side, and it was just floating in the air. As you unloaded, you could see it bounce up and down. It wasn't stabilized. There was an axle in the center of it, and it was rigged, I don't know, I can't remember if it was rigged by metal or cables to the cement block for the counterweight.
Right.
But they called it a floating bull wheel because that's what it was floating in the air. Because the terminal at the bottom was the drive terminal of it. It was floating bull wheel. Yeah, there was a gentleman here on Max Bauer Ski School back in the 70s and early 80s who was a fireman. His name was Smokey, and he was the lift operator up there. When he called down to the bottom on the ringer phone and said that there was smoke coming out of the floating bull wheel. And it was the bearing burning up.
Oh.
And I can't remember from his story whether that bull wheel fell down or whatever. By the time they got up there, was a dear gentleman I met down at Sky Tavern. Smitty was his name. He had been the maintenance guy for Kess Ramsey for years down at Sky Tavern, and then it went to the city. They brought him up to run Slide Mountain. And Smitty, I think, taught Greg a lot about lift maintenance and stuff like that. There were other people, I'm sure.
But Smitty's the guy that had all the characteristic pictures of him, right?
Yeah.
It said unload here, and like vehicle maintenance used to have, a good shop as a clean shop and all that other stuff.
Yeah. He was quite a character. I quite enjoyed him. I told you I spent that 3 weeks when we were closed up here living at Sky Tavern, and he was still, I think he was over at East Bowl too, but he had a house at Sky Tavern. So the little ski and rental shop, which was down there along the highway existing right now, was a bar. And after we skied down the highway, we'd always go in there and have something hot to drink before we hiked into the house and had to shovel out the house to get there. He'd be in there telling stories the way it used to be.
All right. When you were running the rental shop, they started introducing snowboards at that time or not?
Oh, no.
Okay.
No, it was just, the Carnivals short magics. We went from like 145s to 180s. It was a short ski version. Everybody was leaving the 200s and 210s and 215s, and they were teaching everybody on the short skis. So we had 200 people in it, and he goes, nope, we don't have snowboarding here, and those people turned around and left. We got to go somewhere. We got 4 snowboarders with us.
Well, Slide was one of the first places that allowed it, right? That's
I cannot tell you that.
I got some of that, but I can't remember exactly what years that was. I know it was mid or early '80s is when it kind of.
Greg will probably know better. For that.
Okay.
We merged with Slide 1 year with Tito, and as far as I know, that didn't work out. And then Ludwig merged, and they called it Ski Reno, and that was late 70s, and then nothing happened again till the Beards came into the picture in the later 80s.
Oh, okay. And then
then
'87 they merged totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Beards couldn't take care of the maintenance. They didn't have anybody skiing over there. And
Is it because people like this side better? Was the competition pretty stiff, or?
yeah, it was, everything started to go downhill over there in the 70s. I forget what the attorney's name is. Greg will probably know. It was Liz. Oh, there were so many different owners over there.
Yeah, I've got a big list of all the different owners that have been through
But they
Slide.
ran it into the ground,
Right.
actually. And Ludwig was good at maintenance. He got Greg over here eventually. After Greg didn't get along with the owners over there. Well, they let everybody go the last day they were open. Or everybody walked out, I can't remember. But Greg came over here and started doing the maintenance and working with Randy, and he had been helping out for a couple of years on the major projects. When something went down, they hired him to come in and troubleshoot them. And then Ludwig wanted a maintenance program. He saw that the lifts had to run when the road was open, and he just couldn't run them without some maintenance. And when we had good years, they expanded. They decided that we needed more parking, we could sell more lift tickets. Triple chairs came in and moved more people on the mountain, and we went from 50 short magics to 200 short magics in like 5 years. So we saw that fleet of skis go up, and 50 pairs of children's skis when we only had 10 in the beginning. for the small kids, the junior skiers. And then, God, what is it, late 80s, whenever Ludwig saw those 2 or 3 cars leaving the parking lot, his dollar signs went off. I think it was Ludwig, Randy Zosch, and Greg Stafford standing there in front of the maintenance building there in lot 1. And they counted up how much money they lost in lift tickets and just said, I guess we gotta let snowboarders on the hill. Because we just sent a bunch of money somewhere else. And it was probably the next week, I can't remember how it fell into place. I was pretty much out of the loop, any decision making or anything
Right.
like that. But all of a sudden, we're gonna have snowboarding, you gotta buy some snowboards. So we bought 5, 10 snowboards, Kempers.
Yeah.
And nobody worried about snowboard boots. All you had to do is have a pair of Sorels, and you were on your way. And that's the way snowboards got into the rental shop at Mount Rose. And I think Jess Davis was here, and he helped me. Rob was here too, I think, that first winter when we put the snowboards in. And Jess got into it. He quit skiing and he got into snowboarding. And that was the big, okay, you want to go snowboarding? Well, let's try and figure out how these bindings work and how we can make them better and get everybody out on the hill and get them turned over. Of course, people went out and took 1 or 2 or 3 runs, and I said, you want to switch to skis? Sure. We give them a set of skis, and then we had the snowboard there for somebody else to try, because we didn't have a whole bunch of them.
Right.
And they'd last 2 or 3 runs and get banged up, and bring it back. Hey, well, take a pair of skis, we'll go back the old way for a while. And that's the way it went. And then we had, that snowboard could go out 5, 10 times a day. The people always, we gave them the option to go right back to a rental ski.
Yeah.
And it was a big turnover on that 5, I can't remember, maybe Jess will remember, 5, 10. Not very many snowboards at all.
Okay. Let's see. When you first came out here, what car were you driving?
I didn't have a car when I came to the university.
What was the first car you had when you were here?
The first car I brought back was a 1962 Ford Econoline van.
Okay.
And what I had gone to Mammoth with the gentleman Randy Zosch, who was on the UNR ski team with me at that time. We got to Mammoth and I looked around in the parking lot, and all the Southern California boys that hung out with surfboards in the summertime had vans parked in the parking lot with their ski racks with their skis on top. And they had them all set up to ski with them in the wintertime and crash in the parking lot, especially in the springtime. When we went back in the spring of '68 for some of the final Far West ski races of the year. And I said, I'm not buying a car, I'm buying a van. I said, that's perfect, driving back and forth from New York to Reno, sleep in it, fix it up, a couple cabinets, little shag carpeting, curtains, all set.
All right. And wasn't it the brown van? Wasn't that yours that we had here for a long time?
Oh yeah, that was I went from, what I did is I went into the business with that 62 Econoline. I wrecked that one in a year or 2. And then I ended up buying another one, and then I kept buying them and putting paneling in it and building them up. And then I finally, in '73, when I got the job here in the rental shop full time, I bought a brand new Dodge, fixed that all up, and then I wanted 4-wheel drive. So back in the early '80s, I ordered from Reno Dodge a 4-wheel drive van, and had that. And then when Ludwig bought a 4-wheel Ford for him and Ida to get up and down the mountain van. And I watched them drive around, so I said, I want a 4-wheel drive van. So I ordered one up and got one for driving up and down the mountain, because we were open more and more So it became optional on the big snow days if we needed four-wheel drive to get up the mountain. So I had that four-wheel drive van for like a year or two, and then we merged with Slide Mountain. They needed a shuttle van, so Ludwig had already sold his van. So Paul and Ludwig offered to buy my van, so I sold it. And they used it as a shuttle.
I remember because it didn't have any windows in the back, did it?
The back
Doors.
doors had two windows.
It was just
on
kind
the
of dark
side.
in there. I remember that.
No, the side door was a rolling door. It didn't have a window either. It was a shuttle for years, and then it became the garbage hauler. Kitchen had it. For hauling bags of garbage to the dumpster. And people leave keys in it, and somebody jump in it when they didn't have a cab ride down the mountain. It was left at the airport a couple times with the keys in it. There's a lot of interesting stories about that Dodge.
I just remembered that. I was like, okay. I'm sure I can talk with you some more. Anything else you got that's like good stories that you remember or favorite runs or?
Yeah, each year we cut different runs, and Ida was always out skiing, having lots of fun, and Ludwig could come out on the mountain. We were like a family, and we made it. You never knew when it was going to snow. We'd go right up against the holiday with hardly any snow and just marginal business, and then all of a sudden we'd get a bunch of snow, and everybody'd work together, and we'd make the place work. Get more people hired, so people get some time off and stuff like that. It was like a family business. It was, Ludwig made this place happen, There was some planning in it all summer long. And when he had some money, he put it back into it. When he didn't have any money, we just lived on a roll of duct tape and a roll of dimes and made it work.
Did the hotel run in the summer? Was it a year round?
Yeah, they used to rent it out for seminars and stuff like that. And Ludwig and Ida, they kind of let Randy run the place. Ludwig and Ida, after the first year or two, they disappeared for July and August.
I mean, would it just have a big vacancy sign? Would they treat it like a hotel?
Yeah, they didn't really run it in the summertime. And then when we had the MGM fire, they wanted sprinkler systems and everything updated, and Ludwig just said, we're not going to. Alarm systems and emergency doors and that. And Ludwig just says, it doesn't make any money, why do it?
Okay.
And as we need more space for more people to live up here, that they didn't want kitchen help and people leaving the mountain, they used some of the rooms up and got offices and just expanded the situation and storerooms and stuff like that.
I heard that was like 82 was when they stopped renting rooms. Does that sound about right?
Yeah. It was hard. We tried to rent skis for 4 or 5 days or 2 days in a row, and then the road would be closed for 3 days, and then you'd have to try and find a way to refund the money, and I'd put people in my van and take them to the airport, because the shuttle bus couldn't come pick them up here after they had dropped them off. They finally, you couldn't, it wasn't a perfect scenario for
Right.
hotel guests. Or I'd be calling her friends up in Reno, can you pick up Dusha's skis at this hotel or something like that? The people are gonna check out and I gotta send them a refund, and if you could get their skis, boots and poles, and we'll somehow get them back to the mountain, It's just, they saw more of it because they were answering the phones. We didn't have the phone system that we've had for the last 20 years.
Right.
Somebody woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning and the mountain's gonna be open today. Maybe just one lift with the Alpenhorn. It's too windy for the top of Northwest, Most of us had to come to work because 7 o'clock was too late.
Yeah. No, I'm
We
sure.
were on our way up the mountain anyway, So you work a few hours or whatever, and then, nope, we're not gonna open the mountain today. Okay. Try and get a hold of employees down the state at the bottom of the hill that we knew for sure what was gonna happen. It's a whole different system now.
Yeah. Did you ever go to the Mapes?
Oh, yes. The Mapes Hotel, when we had the Winter Carnival here one year, Charlie Mapes, he loved skiing, and he loved the mountain, Slide Mountain, Mount Rose. He loved the university. And one year, I think the year I started here, we had the National Ski Bob Championships here for
71.
North America, 71. And I was heavily involved with it with Tito. I worked day and night here. We'd be running northwest. Hopefully there was a full moon or clouds were gone, and we'd be boot packing into chutes or down Kit Carson because we were getting a storm every other day in between the ladies' runs and the men's runs. And hauling people down, the national teams from Europe down to all the hotels in Reno, whether it was the Riverside or the Mapes or Harrah's. And then one year, Charlie hosted UNR's Winter Carnival. He did the whole awards banquet up in the, I forget what they called that top floor of the Mapes Hotel. But they had a banquet for all the ski teams, and Air Force Academy was here. I think DU was here from Denver, Colorado, from Boulder, and then your West Coast schools. And Charlie put a show on down there for the awards banquet. We had the ski jump down at Sky Tavern. All the races came off up here. Where our upper parking lot maintenance and Galena Run now was, 11-mile cross-country track.
Was Atoma running when you were here? The cross country center?
Yeah,
Do you have any idea what years that ran?
we rented cross-country skis. We had 30 pairs of cross-country skis in 74, 75, 76 out of the rental shop.
Okay.
And the gal that ran that set a track up. 2 tracks, one across the street. I think she started up above parking lot 3. And then they put dug parking lot 2 and 3 out, part of 3 anyway. I think Ludwig made her go across the street. Then he finally realized that we needed the parking and we weren't making any money off cross countries. Selling
Okay.
lift tickets. And we were making rentals, but it was costing more money for parking.
So they had a cross country center, but we rented the skis for them?
No, that came after.
Oh,
We
okay.
shut down our operation.
Oh, I see. We used to have our own. Yeah, what you're saying is we had 2 tracks we ran. We rented skis here,
Yeah.
and then after we
The
quit doing
lady
cross
that ran
country.
the program, I can't remember her name. There was a guy first, and then a lady came in and did it. And she set the track. And she was here every day and took people out on tours. And the rentals, ran through the rental shop here.
Okay, but then after you quit doing it, Atoma started up.
Yeah, it started up across the street or
So that was
something.
late
They-
70s then?
Yeah, they put a trailer over there for the winter or something.
And it was only how many years did it operate? Any idea?
No, I don't really remember. That Mount Rose really wanted that. They got that parking lot over there for a while. They cut a parking lot over there. And then Mount Rose got it. And then Forest Service, I think, got it, or somebody got it.
Yeah.
And they leased it out, put a trailer in, and started a cross-country center over there for a
Okay.
couple of winters when they started working on that Galena ski area project.
Yeah. Now I remember that. I couldn't. Nobody ever has a very good knowledge of when Atoma ran.
God, I
And,
wish I could remember that lady's name. There was a kid that ran it. He worked when there was no business and we needed his help. We trained him to do rental skis. Had a ponytail and he ran it for 1 or 2 years. Took people out on tours. And then he left and the lady came in for 1 season. I don't remember her name. Then Ludwig just said, well, I need the parking. I need to sell lift tickets.
yeah.
Hey, this headache's gone.
Yeah.
I had to wax and clean the skis, torch them, paint them every year, torch them again. Yeah, it's fine with me, get rid of them.
Why'd you have to torch?
Because they're wooden bases.
Yeah?
Yeah, put pine tar and torch it into the base
Oh, okay.
to get the sticky wax to stick to it.
Okay. Huh.
And then you had to clean that wax off every day, and then it was a different color wax for a different temperature.
Yeah.
And the ice would wear off the pine tar on the wooden bases. It's nothing like the fiberglass and the fish scales and everything, that came in the
Right.
80s and 90s. Hey, when I was in high school, we ran cross-country races. We'd go down to the Army surplus store and buy 215, 220, 10th Army surplus skis, put them on a table saw and cut them down. That's where our cross-country
Huh.
skis were. And pine tar and torch them,
Okay.
and then still use stick wax and 3-pin bindings.
Right. That's good stuff. Well, if you think of other stuff, I want to get it all. So if you ever, I mean, go ski.
They took over the corner, you know, I told you,
Yeah.
Tito built this deck on the corner.
Uh-huh.
Well, they took 2 or 3 of the hotel rooms out. And well, maybe there weren't any hotel rooms. Maybe they left that blank in that corner there where the stairway is, where you and I and Paul walked up.
Yeah.
They put an apartment in there. They lived for about a month in one of these hotel rooms, and I just said, it ain't gonna work. Luder, I gotta have an apartment with a kitchen or something. So they got Johnny the electrician, who worked for Sierra Pacific, and he had always been a maintenance electrician up here. He did the wiring. I think I did some of the insulation, and I got somebody to sheet rock it, and Kess Ramsey sent one of his guys up and put the plumbing in it. And got a carpenter from Kess's construction company to do the finish work in it, put a cabinets and kitchen together. And I was in room, they called it 112, was the room without a window that faced the A-frame, next to the phone room. And seeing I didn't have a window, I put the chain on the door, and that was my light from the hallway to the world when I went to bed at night. And sometimes if I had 1 or 2 guys that were my key guys in the rental shop, they bunked in with me on snow days or snow nights. And if there were any problems, I and Ludwig could hear it on that end of the building. Well, you had people 4-wheel drive Jeeps going out in the snow, getting stuck, people trying to break in the windows down in the basement, and I'd be pounding on the door, douche, get out. You gotta help Ludwig. He's got the shotgun or the pistol. Somebody's breaking in the lodge. I go, what am I gonna do? I just got home. I've been drinking all night. She says, just get some pants on, let's go. I can't follow him around. You gotta be his backup. Well, I mean, I'll follow Ludwig around. I'm all right. Do you have a gun? I go, no, I don't even know how to use a gun. Then we'd be out chasing people, and we'd call the sheriff when they were stuck out there. Well, we got the sheriff coming out, and you get a tow truck, tow yourself out. There's nobody around here to tow you out. Because I had my van out in the parking lot. It was 2-wheel drive. I wasn't going to try and tow anybody out. It sank right to the axles out there in the snow, trying to drive around, do donuts. If they couldn't do them in the parking lot, they were going to do them out there between Northwest and Pondo.
Right.
So, I mean, we got all kinds of war stories. And then they had the kitchen help living on the other side of the stairway over where Frank's apartment is, or Murray's office. And, oh, these guys would get drunk, chasing each other around with knives and beating on the doors. And I'd come, gotta get Ludwig to help them out. These people are drunk again and tearing up the lodge. So I've got some really, that's why they liked me around, because nobody else was living here except people that had too much whiskey and were out of control. And they had a terrible time after they had the concessionaire go away. Left Davis there. He did the Ponderosa in the summertime and did the ski lodge here. in the wintertime, and they wanted to do it in-house, and then they opened up a can of worms. Because, everybody looked great. Get the first couple of weeks in it, and they find out who the drinkers are, and they hated each other, and it was a three-ring circus sometimes. And then they didn't know what to do with each other if we didn't get open. They had already hired them.
Yeah.
And so it was always interesting.
Well, cool. Well, go